Hey there, and welcome back to By His Grace Marriage Ministry Podcast. My name is Amanda, and Shabbat Shalom to those of you that keep the Sabbath. I pray that you have a blessed Shabbat and restful Sabbath. Okay, so I had done an episode just a few minutes ago called The Torah Within Marriage Part 1. This is Part 2. I had also done an episode before that with a quick update and just kind of sharing from my heart. I don't know what happened to that episode. Somehow I accidentally deleted it, and so it is no more. So anyways, I'm just going to share real quick what I had put in there or what I had talked about in there. I was just quickly sharing that you might notice a few episodes were removed. And real quick, I had removed them because I had gotten some negative feedback, mostly with what I had shared concerning a personal experience that I had to do with the topic with guarding your purity and what can happen when we are tempted and fall prey to that. And so I just decided to go ahead and remove part 1 and part 2 of guarding your purity. It will be a topic that I probably will discuss again. I just went ahead and removed those episodes because I was like, oh goodness, and I knew that coming into ministry, I prepared myself mentally that stuff like this would probably happen. It hasn't happened too much, praise Yah, but that was a time where it did occur, and I decided to just go ahead and remove it for now. If I end up talking with you one-on-one individually and the topic comes up, I will absolutely share with you if I feel led by the Ruach, personal things that I've gone through that I feel might help you, but for now, I'm just going to kind of keep certain things to myself for now. So the other thing that I was saying in the episode that apparently was somehow deleted was that after much prayer, I will do 100 episodes, so go up to 100. I am currently at 90, or 91. So I have a few more episodes coming, and once I hit episode 100, that will be it for this podcast ministry. I just need to focus on some trials that I'm going through right now, but also, praise Yah, new beginnings and new chapters that are coming as well. So yeah, that is the update with the podcast. And then I was just kind of sharing a praise report and just, sharing that I, even though we're walking through a trial right now, I have seen Yahuwah's goodness through all of it. And I'm just so thankful to him and just feel blessed beyond measure. So many people have just been incredible in sending gifts and praying, and it's just been amazing. So I wanted to share that real quick, and that's what I was saying in that episode that somehow got deleted. So I said, all right, well, maybe it just wasn't meant to be published. So anyways, the other episode that I removed was called Torah Wife, and the reason why I removed it was because I wanted to redo it, which is what I'm doing now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then that'll be it for this week. As we are going into the last day of the week, and then next week I will probably have some more words to share. And again, I'm going to go as far as up to 100 episodes. And once I've hit that 100th episode, praise Yah, I cannot believe how many episodes have been published within the past 6 months. I think it's been 6 months. Yeah. I started in October. I'm not good with math or numbers. But anyways, I just give all thanks and glory to Yahuwah for the knowledge that he has given me, not just to apply to my own life, in my own marriage, my own family, but to help, to share it, to help edify others. So praise Yah with that. I don't know what he has in store in the near future. I could be doing ministry with my husband. I could be just focusing on my family and marriage, or, I don't know. But I've always felt that, marriage and family is my first ministry, and so are for many other wives. So if that's the case, I want to focus there. But if Yahuwah extends that service elsewhere, then of course I will definitely be obedient to that. So, but that's the update that I wanted to share in the praise report, really briefly. But that's just what that episode was about. I don't know what happened. Anyways, so on to part 2 of Torah, the Torah within your marriage. So again, please, if you've started playing this episode, stop right here if you have not listened to part 1. When I had published Guarding Your Purity Part 1 and Part 2, I don't know what happened that everybody listened to Part 2 and not Part 1. I think like 1 or 2 people listened. And I was like, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to listen to these episodes, even though I've done them in chronological order. They're in seasons and episodes, they're in order. You don't necessarily have to watch them in order, but the ones that are in parts, like Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, or it's a series, you may want to listen to it in order, so that Part 2 makes maybe a little more sense. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't always do recaps. I don't always talk about, okay, I talked about this in the first one. I try to, but I don't always, because of time constraints or time limits. So anyways, I just want to share that real quick. I was just like, what on earth? Why is everybody listening to Part 2, not Part 1? So anyways, but it's up to you. However you want to listen to it. I'm not here to tell you how, as long as the message gets to you and you hear, what you need to hear in that moment, or whatever Yah wants to speak to you about. So anyways, moving right along. So I've had quite a few people, myself included, where we have come to situations where, there are spouses that have come to truth, but the other spouse has not yet. And so again, one of the biggest reasons why this happens is because majority of us grew up in deception. Majority of us grew up in churches of men. We grew up in false doctrines. We have been in a lot of deception. And for example, I know for me, that's how it was. I didn't grow up a believer because my parents didn't expose me to that. But when I became a believer in my 20s, I went straight into Christianity. And I'm thankful I didn't land in a cult or something like that. But I ended up going to Christianity because that's what there was and that's what I knew at the time. So I have been a believer for 10 years, praise Yah. And 8 of those 10 years, I was Christian. And then in 2020, which ironically was just a few months after I had met my spouse, I met my spouse in 2018. So in 2020, I came to truth. Yahuwah graciously brought me out of deception, brought me out of the churches of men, brought me out of Babylon, brought me out of spiritual Mitzrayim, and brought me into truth, brought me into the Torah. Okay. So again, if you are listening to this and you're like, what's Torah? What is all of this? Please go back and listen to my episodes. One of them is titled Set Apart. The other one is Becoming Hebrew, How to Graft In, and so on and so forth. Look for those episodes and listen to them, and it'll make more sense. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go into detail about that. I'm just going to continue from there. So I highly encourage you to listen to those episodes. So again, for example, I was in Christianity, and then my spouse, grew up a believer, but was also in Christianity, and I think even some Catholicism and stuff like that. So many of us, my point is that many of us were deceived. Many of us were shown, false doctrines and within churches of men and just false things, right? And so, again, one of the very first things that Yahuwah revealed to me, even before I had met my husband, was that he was going to be part of his plan concerning marriages from him, set apart marriages, was that he was going to be raising up a lot of his daughters, a lot of us women, a lot of us wives and wives-to-be, to help bring his sons, our husbands-to-be, back to him, back to faith, and then into truth. Okay, so not just back to their faith, because remember, and like I said in part 1, a lot of our husbands or husbands-to-be, they are either prodigals, they got caught up in some kind of counterfeit situation, relationship, lifestyle. Again, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to my husband. I ended up in a counterfeit relationship. I had a child. My husband ended up in a counterfeit relationship. He had children. And so this has happened to many of us because in our society, that's the trend. People are fornicating left and right. People are having children with whoever. Nobody's caring anymore about the sanctity of marriage and family, right? It's just all just completely distorted, right? And I've talked about that all through this podcast. So in the same way, if we were brought up a certain way, or brought up in deception, brought up in false doctrines, false churches, things like that. And I say churches of men because it's not scripturally based. These are men that have made, if you look at majority of religions out there, Jehovah's Witness, Mormonism, the Catholic Church, even Christianity, all of those religions were all man-made. They were all brought on by someone, and I actually talked about this in an episode. I can't remember which one it was, but I have talked about it. I think it was a part 3 of a series. I just can't remember which one it was. So that's why I say churches of men, okay? Because that's what it is, churches of men, okay? So in the same way that happened to us, more than likely it's happened to our spouse. And one of the plans that Yahweh had revealed to me early on was that myself, including many other women, would be raised first. Like Yahweh would work on us women first, to then through us, Yahweh could bring our husbands back to him through us, okay? So, we're just kind of the example. And I've actually had a lot of sisters say, I don't understand why I'm the one that's spiritually leading, or why my husband's not quite there yet, this, that, the next thing. This is why. Because again, as I explained, the enemy has attacked men more. He's removed the restraints more with men versus women, right? Why? Because men, once again, are the head of the homes. They have the headship in the marriage. They carry the seed, right? By carry the seed, meaning, they're the ones with the sperm. We can't have babies without men, right? So, that's why we take their last name when we marry. That's why when our babies are born, they have their daddy's last name, and so on and so forth, right? So that's why the enemy focuses on men more and attacks men more, because families and marriage are after men, right? It all starts there. So he attacks women when we begin to cover our husbands and our children in prayer, okay? Because as wives and mothers, and even husbands too, but as wives and mothers, we are very, we have that authority, and we have that assignment and that power, that our prayers are powerful. Prayers of a mother are powerful. Prayers of a wife are powerful. So I remember when Yahweh showed me that, and it's so incredible how Yahweh works, because it was like right before I met my husband. And sure enough, when I met my husband, I was like, oh, okay, how's this going to work? And then that's when he started showing me everything he started showing me. And I was like, wow, okay, because like my husband was in some serious bondage, and maybe one day we'll share that. But anyways, that is happening to a lot of couples that Yahweh is bringing together. And again, switch it. It could be, the wife, or something, or the husband or whatever. Not all of it is exactly the same, but from what I've seen, like 90% of it is Yahweh's raising up women to stand in the gap for their husbands and intercede in prayer. So when it comes to the Torah or the truth, it's the same thing. A lot of women are actually going to come to truth first before their husbands. So I actually have personal friends. I have a few friends that have all come to Torah. They've all come to the truth before their husbands did. And their husbands came to truth through their wives. And it wasn't because the wives were pressuring them or beating them over the head with it or anything. They just simply exemplified it. So in part 1, I shared Brother Adam that talked briefly about this topic as well. That's in part 1. And I'm in agreement with him. 1, it can absolutely be a test for you and your spouse. 2, like I said, it can be what I just said. It's all part of the plan to help bring men back. And not just back to their faith walk, but back to truth as well, right? Bring them out of deception that they were in for so long, which more than likely wasn't their fault, right? It's not our fault that we've all been deceived for as long as we have, because we are living in modern day Babylon, right? And spiritual Mitzrayim is Egypt. So, in the same way that's happened to us, we have to stop for a minute and think, this more than likely happened to my spouse. A lot of people are coming out of deception. A lot of people are waking up to the truth. But for many of us, part of that assignment of our set-apart marriage is that our spouse will come to truth through us. Yahweh will work on us first. I will never forget this. He literally told me this one day in prayer. And this was, I want to say, a good 3 or 4 years before I even met my spouse. I remember when he told me, because I was in the middle of him breaking me down and putting me back together again, right? And he said, I'm working on you first so that I can work through you to bring your husband to me. And not bring him to me in the sense of he's a non-believer. He's an unbeliever. No, he's a believer. But just like me, right? Like, he was brought up in deception. You see what I mean? So, and that is the case for a lot of other couples that Yahuwah has ordained together. So, if you have been brought to truth first, that's why. For some couples, they'll come into truth together. Praise Yah. How beautiful is that, right? For most of you, one of you is going to come to truth first. Okay? Now, before I run out of time, let me share this real quick. I've had people ask me, what do I do if I've been convicted about not keeping the pagan holidays anymore, but my spouse still wants to? Okay? Like Brother Adam said, and like I'm getting ready to say, the best thing you can do is that you keep them to the best of your ability. Don't pressure your spouse. If you already have children together, show those children as best as you can. I know it can be hard when both parents are on completely different faith walks, and it can be challenging with the children because the children are just as much your spouse's as they are yours. But do the best that you can. Yahweh will honor that, and he will bless that, and it will open your spouse's eyes eventually. It might take some time. It could take a few months. It could take a few years. Is it difficult? Yes, but it's part of the assignment. Does it mean that you should divorce your spouse, leave them and divorce them? No. If Yahweh ordained you with that person, it's for a reason, and you should not break wedlock with the person that Yahweh ordained for you. Okay? You don't give up on them. Okay? What happens if, for example, your spouse wants to continue to eat foods that we know Yahuwah commanded us not to eat, right? They're unclean. I mean, my spouse is from a state that, pork is like, it's a huge thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge change. Can I force my spouse? No, I can't force him. I can only say, hey, this is what the scripture says, and that's it. And then leave it in prayer and leave it in Yahweh's hands. Am I going to eat it? No. If my spouse tells me I have to eat it or I should eat it, what am I going to tell my spouse? No, because it's unclean. And I don't want to sin against Abba. If you want to, that's between you and Yah, right? Because I had somebody ask me, well, if you're one with your spouse, are you accountable for their sins? No. I used to have the same question. I'm like, okay, if I'm one with my spouse, right, we're one flesh, then if I sin, does that fall on my husband as well? Or if my husband sins, does it fall on me as well? No. We're all accountable for our own sins. So if your husband or wife decides to do something that the scriptures or Yahuwah commanded us not to do, all you can do is pray for them. Pray for them and just exemplify it quietly. You don't have to verbally express it all the time or beat him over the head with it or anything like that. I've had people ask me, I don't want to keep Christmas. I don't want to keep Easter, but my spouse still does. They don't see anything wrong with it yet, and this and that. Try not to take part in it as best as you can. I know it's not that simple. Someone once, asked me, what if my spouse wants to travel on the Sabbath and we're not supposed to, once again, just do the best, you can. Yahuwah knows your heart. He knows you're trying to be obedient to his word. I'm not telling, just like Brother Adam, I'm not saying to rebel against your husband. You shouldn't do that. But again, the only time that I will tell wives that they don't have to submit to their husbands is when their husbands, is asking them to sin, to knowingly go against the word of Yah. That's when or any abuse. I would never tell a spouse, a wife or a husband, to submit to any kind of abuse. Or put up with it, right? So, but other than that, You do the best that you can, and eventually, like Paul says, you will win over your spouse. Your spouse will come to truth or to belief. Or not belief, I'm sorry, it's a totally different topic. That they'll come to truth. um, because it's a process, like with me. The convictions that I had as I came into truth, it was a process. Stop eating certain things, no longer keeping the pagan holidays, um, wearing certain things and this, that, and I mean, it was all a process. It didn't just happen overnight. And it's going to be the same with your spouse. It's going to take a process. I've had people come to me, my spouse is super prideful. Pray for them. Pray that that stronghold is broken off of them in Yeshua's name. Pride is really bad. If they have some kind of stronghold, they're struggling with, pray for them daily. There's no prayer more powerful than the prayer of a spouse for their spouse. You know what I mean? A wife's prayer is extremely powerful over her husband, and likewise, the husband's prayers for his wife are extremely powerful. Same thing when we pray for our children. So it's not an easy walk, brothers and sisters, but remember, Yahuwah has done this for a reason. He has done this for a reason. It's part of his plan of waking so many up, and bringing his children back to him, and that's what's going on right now. I'm seeing this grow more and more and more. Some people will call it a movement. Some will call it a cult. No, it's just people waking up to the truth and coming out of the cult and the deception and all of that of what's been going on for centuries. But for most of you, you will probably come to truth first, and then it will be through you that your spouse will come to truth. And there's nothing wrong with that. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, you shouldn't marry somebody like that. No. Because number one, it's not what man says or what they think. It's what Yahuwah says. If that's Yahuwah's plan, and again, that's the purpose of the two of you, or one of the purposes of the two of you coming together, then so be it. And be obedient to that. But again, don't force your spouse, don't pressure them, don't anything like that. Yahuwah will work on their hearts, and he will remove the scales from their eyes. I promise that will happen. As long as you stay diligent and obedient to his word and trust in him and have faith. Listen, that's one thing that I have just been, it was something that I was sharing too. I was just sharing from my heart. I don't know if it's because we've just went through some feast days or what's going on, or if it's trial going on in my life right now, but I have been in a lot of repentance, and I have just been praying to Yahuwah to keep me on the narrow path, to keep me focused on him, to trust in him with everything, what's going to happen next, where we're going to end up next, trusting him with the future, trusting him with my family, trusting him with my marriage, with my husband, and just everything. Because everything right now is so up in the air, right? Everything is so challenging right now. Trusting him with upcoming things that are coming, things that if I were to share with other people, they'd probably think I was crazy. That's the thing of having faith, is believing what Yahuwah has shown you, what he has placed on your heart. Whether he's shown you in dreams, visions, through his word, whatever. It's believing and trusting in him for these things and how you are to do it. Obedience is so important to Yah. We have to be obedient. He even requires it more so over than sacrifice. And we will be called to sacrifice at times. And I've said this before, marriage is a beautiful gift from Yah, but it's also hard work, okay? And if you are called to a set-apart marriage, most likely these are some of the things that you're going to face. But it's honoring, and it's also humbling at the same time to put someone else before you. I know that's what that taught me after I met my spouse. It really helped me to just understand so much about who Yahuwah is and what it's truly all about. It was super humbling, because after I met my spouse, and my spouse didn't know this, but I prayed for him every day. And he probably thought that I hated him. And that won't make sense to any of you, because I haven't shared that testimony yet, but I was praying for my husband every day. And that humbled me and taught me so much. And I grew closer to Yahuwah more than what I ever thought I could. And it was just incredible to put someone else before me and just to pour basically myself into those prayers for that person. It's truly an incredible thing. And I get emotional thinking about it because that was just something I had never experienced before. And it really did. It brought me really, really close to Yah and just taught me more about who he is. And because I just, I had already gone through so much in my life. And then when I met my husband and learned his life and what all he was going through, and I just thought, wow, like, oh my goodness, how do I get through this, and yeah. So maybe one day we'll share that testimony, but I definitely want to, because it definitely shows Yah's grace and mercy, redemptive work. Just a lot, just a lot. It's really beautiful. So if you are someone that is walking a similar faith walk, and that is what is going on with your spouse-to-be or your spouse, your upcoming marriage or your marriage, just know that Yahweh has a plan and he's going to do something through it. There's a purpose, and I'm telling you, majority of it is, this is one of the ways that Yahweh is bringing back his sons to him, and not just back to him, but to truth, just like he's brought us to truth. And that's truly an incredible thing. I am honored that Yahweh chose me to do that for my spouse. I'm absolutely honored and humbled, and just, is it tough some days? Absolutely. Absolutely. It has been quite the journey. There have been definitely challenging days and days full of tears, but then there's been days full of joy as well, and just incredible, just absolutely incredible. And I'm so thankful for who Yahuwah ordained for me and who he chose. And I'm just so thankful. And so joyful and blessed for what's to come. There's so much more to come with all of that. So but yeah, marriage is hard work. It's ministry in itself, but there's also so many beautiful blessings attached to it. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, and the idea is that when trials and challenges do come your way, you face them together. You don't go at one another, or, you know what I mean? Because that's what the enemy wants. He wants the two of you to break apart, right? But the idea is that, and I did an episode about this, you, your spouse, and Yah, your three cords braided together. You can't be easily broken. So when you have Yahuwah as your foundation, he brought the two of you together. When he remains the foundation, not the center, and then the covering, nothing can get to the two of you. You have to stick together and just trust in him for everything. Your finances, your home, your marriage, the babies you're going to have, or the children you already have, or all of the above. You have to just trust him for all of that ministry, the purpose that the two of you are going to share together and do. Trust him with all of those things. Okay? So that is it for this topic. I wanted to share that real quick. Again, I will have several more episodes coming, and then as soon as I hit 100th episode, that will be it for this podcast. I will still be doing counseling. That will still be available for, I don't know how long, until Yahuwah tells me no more. But the podcast is going to stop. So I just wanted to let you all know, if you are interested in contacting me via email, if you need advice, counseling, prayer, whatever, please feel free to do so. I'm here for you. I'd be happy to talk with you and help you any way that I can. All right, Shabbat Shalom to all of you. I pray you all have a blessed Sabbath, a blessed weekend, and start to your week. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will talk with you in my next episode. Shalom.